Inside the Magic, show number 380 for Tuesday, July 17th, 2012. It is Tuesday, July 17th, 2012. This is show 380 of Inside the Magic. And as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti. We have another great show packed with lots of Disney and theme park and San Diego Comic-Con news and a whole lot more fun. Before we get to all of that, I invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and so much more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, or anything else you want to submit, you can always email me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message over at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Walt Disney World Florida summer room discounts are available. Plus, when you book your Walt Disney World summer vacation with Magical Travel, you can receive free one-day water park tickets for everyone in your traveling party. Certain restrictions apply. You're going to want to call Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote. And be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And by listeners and viewers like you and like David Ross and Damian Wood, thanks very much for your donations this week, and of course to all of our monthly recurring donation subscribers and everybody who clicks through those affiliate links on the website. It all supports the show and helps us get out to cover things like the San Diego Comic-Con, so I thank you very much for that. And now, let's get started with our trip around the world. So as I mentioned a couple of times, San Diego Comic-Con was the last few days, and I spent, that's the reason this show is on a Tuesday night, actually, rather than recording on Sunday as usual, because it was about 4.5 days of excitement, big Disney presence at the Comic-Con this year, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on a little bit later in the show. But first, we're going to have our usual News from Around the World segment that's going to focus on all the news that has come out recently, except anything that came out of the Comic-Con, because I'll be talking about that a little bit later in the show. So we're going to start off with something that should be obvious to any Disneyland fans out there, that today is indeed a very special date. July 17th, 1955 was the opening day of Disneyland. The original theme park years and years ago had its grand opening let's see if I can do some math, 57 years ago? Yeah, that's right. It's 57 years of Disneyland and of theme park excitement. And on sort of these off birthdays, it's not the 50th, it's not the 55th, it's somewhere kind of in between. It's 57. Disneyland does celebrate, but they don't celebrate in such a, monumental fashion as they would on the milestone birthdays, but they still have a little fun celebration within Town Square and on Main Street, USA. And really, here at the top of the show, I just want to bring you over to that for just a quick, fun little happy birthday that happened earlier today out at Disneyland. So let's just, head on over to Disneyland now for a little bit of happy excitement.
Happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past. And here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world.
And now, let's join together and sing Happy Birthday to the happiest place on earth. Are you ready? Day here at Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom.
And there we go, just a little bit of a Disneyland celebration to mark this 57th anniversary of the theme park that started it all. So happy birthday to Disneyland. And every year around this time, roughly coinciding with Disneyland's birthday, the what used to be known as the NFFC, now the Disneyana Fan Club, holds its annual event. This one's taking place just a few days from now on Sunday, July 22nd at the Crowne Plaza Resort Hotel in Anaheim. So if you're interested in checking out collectibles and all kinds of good Disney stuff like that, you're going to want to head over there. There is a small cost to get in, but it's pretty tiny, just a few bucks, open from 10:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Robert Olszewski will be there signing his artwork and debuting a few new pieces, and there'll be plenty of other collectibles to check out. Always a fun show to see. So now let's jump out here to Orlando, where, news has been light recently. I mean, you've been listening to the show, been watching the show for the last few weeks. You know that I've been talking almost exclusively about the Disneyland Resort, Cars Land, Buena Vista Street, etc. And, there's not really that much to report on out here at Walt Disney World. Of course, the ongoing topic is New Fantasyland, and really it's still under construction. There's not much else to say about it right now, other than Disney said this week that they're planning on hiring 800 new people for New Fantasyland jobs as well, and in total they're going to be creating actually 1,500 jobs related to New Fantasyland, cast members who will be working there, plus construction workers who will be building it over the next few years and have already been working on it. So definitely a boost for the job market here in Central Florida, but that's really it. I don't really have anything else to say much about New Fantasyland right now, other than, still being built. But here's something interesting that came out of the Disney Parks blog as sort of a coming soon for merchandise, probably not only out here at Walt Disney World, but also at Disneyland. It's something that some people are looking forward to a lot, and others think, that doesn't sound very good. In the world of Disney food merchandise, there's going to be air fresheners that are themed to various treats that you might recognize from the Disney parks, so you can have it hanging in your car, and your car would smell like a turkey leg. Yeah, I'm not sure what you want to scent like a turkey leg. I don't even particularly like the smell of turkey legs, but apparently they're going to have turkey leg air freshener. Of course, it's shaped like a turkey leg, and it looks like one. More pleasant than that, there's a Mickey ice cream bar that they are developing as well, and that should be a bit more enjoyable. There's also a candy apple and Mickey waffle air freshener. So, can't wait to smell what those are like. They're not out yet. They are in development now, but they should be out in the coming months at the parks. So that is actually it for parks really related news this week. It is the middle of summer. I've said this before. Not a lot of park news happens in the middle of the summer because it's so crowded and it's so hot, and they're just dealing with tourists, and there's no reason to sort of debut new things because the day-to-day is already enough for them to handle. So plenty of other Disney news to talk about, though. This actually sort of broke just a few hours ago online, and nobody's even sort of sure at the definite information here. It strongly seems that director Andrew Stanton, just coming off of John Carter and its not-so-successful run, apparently is being signed on to work on a sequel to Finding Nemo for Pixar. He co-directed the original back in 2003, and it is not confirmed by Disney yet, but that may happen in the next hour, in the next couple of days. Andrew Stanton did his only comment really was on Twitter, and of course he can't officially comment on anything like this, but he said, quote, "Didn't you all learn from Chicken Little? Everyone calm down. Don't believe everything you read. Nothing to see here now. # sky is not falling." So, of course, everybody's jumping to conclusions. Oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to be the end of the world, Finding Nemo 2, why are they doing sequels, blah, 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 blah. We don't really know anything yet, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what Finding Nemo 2 may be, if it even exists, and if Andrew Stanton is attached. We'll see in the coming days, I'm sure. Coming up, also related to Disney collectibles and movies and television and just about everything else Disney. And I mentioned this group on this show before. Profiles in History, a big auction house out in California, is having its latest animation auction. It's going to be on Sunday, July 29th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And a whole lot of Disney items are going to be in there, including production cells and backgrounds from early Mickey shorts and Pinocchio and a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride vehicle from Disneyland years ago. That's expected to fetch tens of thousands of dollars. Of course, Walt Disney's first professional motion picture camera is going to be up for auction as well, expected to fetch up to $50,000 and many, 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 many more. So check out Profiles in History's website if you're interested in browsing through those items that'll be for sale and maybe even purchasing one or two, or at least trying to. It is an auction after all, so there's no guarantees. Actually, back out here to Walt Disney World. This is not really theme park news, but it's related, I suppose. Run Disney has released some information about the 20th anniversary Walt Disney World Marathon, Half Marathon, and Goofy's Race and a Half Challenge, all part of the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend presented by Cigna. And the latest races are going to be designated Runner's World Challenge events. Are you actually going to be able to virtually train with Runner's World editors, which I'm sure means watching some video online or something. There will be a VIP race experience with Runner's World editors as well. And of course, all that's at Walt Disney World out here in Orlando. The Half Marathon is on January 12th of 2013, about 6 months away or so, 7 months. And the marathon, January 13th of 2013. More information at rundisney.com. So actually, the biggest news of this week before Comic-Con descended on the world did not come out of Disney, but rather Universal Orlando sort of dropped a surprise bombshell on the world, announcing that they're building a new hotel. They've announced a new value and moderate level resort, which is something that they don't have. It's going to be called Cabana Bay Beach Resort, and it's going to be a very retro-themed resort. I know what you're thinking. You're already thinking Pop Century, but it's actually quite different than what Pop Century is. This is going to be themed to a driving vacation. It's expected to be completed by 2014, and as I said, it will feature both moderate and value level rooms, so something substantially less expensive than the other hotels, Portofino Bay, Hard Rock, etc., that are on Universal Orlando property. There has been a little bit of artwork that was released, a total of 1,000 rooms, and they're jumping on the family suite bandwagon. Of course, Disney has been championing this idea of the family suites lately with the Disney's Art of Animation Resort and some of the others, and 900 of those 1,000 rooms at this Cabana Bay Beach Resort is going to be family suites capable of sleeping 6, featuring kitchen areas, and there actually be I read this wrong, 1,800 rooms, excuse me, 900 family suites, 900 standard guest rooms. It's half and half, so I misread the number. That's what I get for doing a show at 2 in the morning. But anyway, 1,800 rooms total, and 2014 is when it is expected to be built. It's going to be on a 27-acre site on the corner of Hollywood Way and Turkey Lake Road, which is right near a corner of Universal's Islands of Adventure theme park. So looking for a new hotel in a couple years. Universal's going to have another option. One big distinction, though, that's worth mentioning here between that and the other hotels on Universal property, this one will not offer express access. So big difference there. If you're paying for the more expensive hotel, you get that express access to their attractions, whereas staying at this one, you will not. Also, very surprising news came out of another theme park, a Central Florida theme park, again, not Disney. It's Christmas in July, apparently, as far as Busch Gardens Tampa is concerned, because they were revealed details this week for their upcoming celebration, Christmas time celebration, called Christmas Town. It begins November 30th, and it's essentially going to take over the entire park in Christmas stuff. Christmas just everywhere, and it's way too much for me to even rattle off here on the podcast. You can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to see and read about all of what they're going to be offering. Some of it's just going to be called Celebration Village, Ice Wonder Way, Jungle Jubilee, Candy Cane Lane, Miracle Way. The Jars of Clay band is going to perform there every night, and there's much more than that. Christmas Town's going to be an after-hours, hard-ticketed event. $39.99 plus tax, though there are special deals available for those who are already in the park and those who are pass holders, etc. Again, that starts November 30th. It's going to take place nightly through December 23rd, 6 to 11 p.m. And if you go to Busch Gardens now, there is actually already a preview center if you want to find out more about that. And just one more bit of news this week. One more bit of news that did not come out of San Diego Comic-Con. I'll be talking much, much more about all of that in just a minute. So that one more tidbit, also another local Central Florida theme park that is not Disney, is Legoland Florida. And they sent out a really amusing press release just a few days ago. You know, Disney raises their ticket prices every year. Universal follows, or in this case actually led the way to ticket price increases. SeaWorld usually sometime in the year also chimes in and raises their tickets. Well, now Legoland Florida has announced their ticket prices are staying the same. Very odd press release there. I guess they just wanted to say, hey, we're not following the crowd. We're keeping our prices right where they are. So, good to know, I guess. Anyway, that's it for your news from around the world this week. This week's tip comes in from an Anonymous cast member who writes, not all Disney resorts provide towels at the pools. Before heading down to the pool, dial 0 on your phone and check with the front desk. If your resort requires you to take the room towels down to the pool, you can ask the front desk to send some fresh towels to the room while you're at the pool. This way you will have clean, dry towels ready to use when you get back from the pool and want to take a shower. Hey, good tip, whoever you are, Anonymous cast member. Maybe you perhaps work at a Disney hotel and are able to offer such a great tip, but definitely one to consider when lounging around those pools at Disney hotels. Everyone else out there, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. So I do have a whole lot to talk about from the San Diego Comic-Con, so much so that I didn't want to break it up with any other sponsor messages that I'd be featuring in this week's show. And I do have a sponsor to welcome back to the show. That is Theme Park Connection. It's been a few weeks since we last heard about them, but they are still going strong out here in Winter Garden, Florida. It's about 15-20 minutes north of the Magic Kingdom, selling Disney collectibles and props from movies and all kinds of rare and unique Disney items, some from Imagineers' personal collections, all in their large warehouse that they're continually getting in new items. They also have an eBay store online and a website, of course, themeparkconnection.com. And if you visit that site, browse their online store, or even come out here to Winter Garden, Florida and browse their store in person, I almost guarantee that you'll find something to purchase. Any Disney fan will certainly see some memorable items that they remember and are fond of from the past. And if you have enough cash, you might even be able to own those unique collectibles from the parks, or maybe even some smaller stuff as well. So worth checking out for any Disney fan over at themeparkconnection.com. And now I do want to talk about San Diego Comic-Con. I couldn't figure any more fitting music to play related to that to kick it all off than a little bit of Tron, since it was such a mainstay at the San Diego Comic-Con for so many years. I unfortunately did not attend this massive convention, 4.5-day convention at San Diego during the years when Tron Legacy was a big topic. It's where it was first announced there. Essentially, the Comic-Con crowd greenlit the project for Disney because they showed the teaser. The crowd response was so huge that Disney had to come in and say, yeah, we're doing that. So it's because of Comic-Con, essentially, that Tron Legacy has ever even existed. So I thought it'd be a good way to start this off. But this year, there was a big Disney presence at San Diego Comic-Con, unlike last year. Last year was the D23 Expo, of course, and so Disney pulled back, didn't really do too much at Comic-Con. Last year was my first year at the event, and it was a good sort of introduction without having to dive into too much Disney. But this year, it was really almost dominated by Disney throughout, from the Walt Disney Studios to Disney Channel, Disney XD, Marvel, of course, now owned by Disney, and they've had a huge presence. It is Comic-Con, of course, and Marvel Comics is, one of the biggest names in the comic world. So plenty to talk about for the next little while about everything. I am going to try to focus largely on those Disney topics here. There's much, much more than Disney at San Diego Comic-Con, of course. There's topics from just about every bit of popular arts, as they like to put it, pop culture, television, movies, video games, etc. And it all exists at Comic-Con in some form. If you've got a favorite show, if you've got a favorite movie that's you're looking forward to seeing, or a video game franchise, it is all there in some capacity, and it would take me the rest of eternity to talk about all of it here. So I invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net for everything I've posted so far about it, and even in the coming days I'll be posting more that is sort of outside the realm of Disney. But here on the podcast, let's jump into some Disney topics first. And actually, I want to start with a question that was sent in from Dale, who wrote, looks like you had a great time. Did you find it busier than last year, or was it just as manic? What was your highlights of the show and everything that was previewed, and what are you most excited about? Well, Dale, I'm definitely going to go into many of those topics, but to answer your first question, was it busier than last year? Well, San Diego Comic-Con is busy, is very, very busy. It's so busy, it is shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, bumping into people throughout the show floor at all times on all 4.5 days from preview night through all 4 full days of the event. It is just simply nonstop, whether it's exploring the show floor, looking at exhibits, grabbing for giveaways from posters and keychains and figures and more posters and more posters. That's tends to be the biggest giveaway item throughout the show floor, which is massive. Just I don't know how many square feet the show floor is, but it's just an insane amount of things to appreciate. So yes, just as crowded, if not more so, than last year. I felt like preview night may have even been more crowded this year. So speaking of preview night, I did already post a report over on InsideTheMagic.net from that first night, which is about 3 hours you get to spend early access to the convention floor. Of course, I had a press pass to cover it all. Getting tickets is very difficult for Comic-Con, but of course I was covering it and reporting to you here. And anyway, so preview night. If you want to know everything that I did that night, head on over to the website and you can read all about that. This took place on July 11th, last Wednesday. A lot of merchandise buying going on, but I did have a specific appointment to make that night. At 7:30 p.m., I was heading into the Frankenweenie touring exhibit that was at San Diego Comic-Con and is coming soon to Disneyland. Really excellent exhibit featuring sets and props and puppets and artwork, all directly from this stop-motion film from Tim Burton and Disney that'll be coming out in October. Really excellent to see all of this up close. And while I was there, I actually had a chance to chat with none other than executive producer of Frankenweenie, Don Hahn. Now, we've talked to Don Hahn here on the show before. We talked to him previously about Waking Sleeping Beauty, the movie he directed about sort of the past and the future of Disney animation. And now he is the producer of Frankenweenie from Tim Burton. And, let's head on over to the San Diego Comic-Con floor to hear a little chat with Mr. Don Hahn. Standing in the middle of the San Diego Comic-Con on preview night, always hectic, but excited to be here with executive producer Frankenweenie, Don Hahn. First of all, your feelings being here, showing off all of these great models to attendees of Comic-Con.
Well, it's pretty great. I mean, we have been working on this movie for 5 or 6 years. It's a labor of love from Tim Burton and all of the crew that is kind of following them. Our producer Allison Abadi is here behind me, and to be able to bring this stuff out and show it is like Christmas morning. We've been hiding this for 5 years, working on it, going, I hope someday somebody will get to see it, and to have you guys here and actually be able to film it and look at it and see what we've been working on is really exciting.
Well, I was at the D23 Expo a few months ago. I guess it's almost a year ago now. We saw you bring out just that one little model, and to see it all so close and up in person is a treat.
It's an amazing art form because you have it's stop motion puppets, so you basically have a puppet with a steel armature inside, and you're moving it one frame at a time to create this acting performance. And I think people love that hand-done quality quality of it, and I think that's why it's going to be exciting today to have you guys and the press and the audience come by and see it for the first time.
So take me back a little bit. Why did yourself and Tim Burton decide to bring Frankenweenie back to life, so to speak?
Well, it's Frankenstein. It's one of the most rich mythological, pieces of literature on the planet, the Frankenstein myth. And when Tim first made the short, back in the early 80s, he was given, probably $10,000 or $20,000 from the studio, and they said, go do what you can do. And he did his best and made this really sweet black and white short. I think in the last 5 years, when we went back and talked about it, we said there must be more. There must be a lot more flesh on the bones of this story and a lot more places to take it. And Tim said, yeah, absolutely. And he brought in John August, our writer, and Allison, our producer, and some really amazing set designers like Rick Heinrichs, who's one of the world-class production designers out there, and started to flesh out this story a little bit more. And we ended up with the movie we have today.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm a big Tim Burton fan to begin with, and clearly there's Tim Burton style all over this movie.
It's what I like about it because it's a very personal movie to him. He designed the characters himself. He directed it. He wanted the characters to look like his handwriting, so when you see it, it really feels like a comfortable pair of shoes, like you've seen Tim's style before. And he's so good at telling these heartwarming stories about a character that maybe is a little odd on the outside, a little misshapen on the outside, like Sparky the dog in this movie, but a character that still has a heart of gold inside. And Tim's one of the greatest storytellers, I think, of our era. I think he'll be remembered not only as a graphic visual artist of our era, but a great storyteller of our era.
When you think back to, you were working on Waking Sleeping Beauty, bringing up all that old footage and finding the young Tim Burton and younger yourself as well, did you have sort of at that time the mindset that everybody around you, Tim Burton and all the talented people at Disney, would go on to do so many great things, even beyond your little group?
I don't think any of us dreamed that we would go on to do the things we've been able to do. But when you looked at people like Tim or Brad Bird or John Lasseter or Ron Clements, John Musker, those guys, you knew it was like a can of gasoline waiting for somebody to throw a match in. And over the years, in a variety of different ways, they've done that. They've exploded in their own different ways, and it's so gratifying for me as a colleague to look at what they're doing. I'm a producer, I'm an artist, but I can sit back and cheerlead and help them make their movies, and that's a really wonderful, humbling thing to know them for as long as I have and be able to help them make their films. I'm a lucky guy.
Well, we're all the lucky ones for being able to experience all the great content. Specifically with Frankenweenie and in the upcoming sort of Halloween season, it seems like there's some other animated, spooky movies coming out.
Yeah.
Do you feel, is it just a weird coincidence that all this is coming out at the same time?
I think it is, except Halloween is like the most growing holiday on the planet. I mean, when I was coming up, you'd buy a pumpkin and ask for some candy. Now it's this massive commercial event, and I think filmmakers want to capitalize on that too. I think what's fun about this story is Frankenstein and Halloween and this idea of Frankenweenie have gone together for 2 or 3 decades, and so it's no surprise that it comes out on Halloween, and it's just a fun chance to not only celebrate the story again, but pay an homage to all these great characters from the 50s monster movies that we all grew up with, the Wolfman and the Invisible Man and the Creature from the Black Lagoon and all those characters.
One more question for you. You've worked, in The Lion King and traditional hand-drawn animation. This is stop motion.
Right.
Can you kind of compare the production process of both? Are they both equally as painstaking, but in different ways?
Yeah, maybe because I'm new to it, I think stop motion animation is incredibly painstaking because it's so physical.
Yeah.
And there's brilliant animators, Eric Goldberg, Glenn Keane, that can do amazing things with a pencil. The physicality of having to go to work for 16 hours, slumped into a very hot set, lit by lights, and reach over and have to make minute little changes and understand the technology of the camera is a whole nother level of animation that I just admire so much. Because it's not just about movement. They're making performances. They're making us laugh and cry out of these puppets.
Yeah.
And that's a miracle. So there's no such thing as the easy animated movie. Computers certainly don't make it easy, and neither do pencils and neither do puppets, but there's something very special about stop motion, I think.
Great. And Frankenweenie's coming out
October 5th.
October 5th.
October 5th. That's when it's fun to be here at Comic-Con and have millions of people come around and get a little sneak preview of it.
That was executive producer of the upcoming Frankenweenie, Mr. Don Hahn. He's had a long history with Disney. Anybody who's seen Waking Sleeping Beauty will see just how far he and Tim Burton and many others date back through the early days of, well, not the early days, that was obviously decades and decades ago, but the sort of the resurgence, the renaissance of Disney animation, 80s, 90s era. And since then, Don has really been instrumental in those worlds now to move into stop motion for Frankenweenie. Very, very exciting. With regards to the Frankenweenie exhibit itself, anybody who's going to be going to Disneyland in the coming months once it moves over there, I believe it's either in August or September, I can't remember the date right at the moment, but once it shows up at Disneyland, certainly I'll tell everybody. They weren't even sure exactly at the booth where in, or at the exhibit where in Disneyland it's going to be quite yet. I asked them and they said, well, it's going to be in the park somewhere, but they didn't know where yet. But definitely anybody, Tim Burton fan or just a fan of animation in general, you need to get to Disneyland when this shows up to see this exhibit. The sets are just stunning, and the photography possibilities there are wonderful as well. I mean, if you look at the photos that I took of this exhibit, getting up close with the characters, it looks like it's a frame straight out of the movie, but you have the chance to take those pictures up close with these phenomenally detailed, intricate little puppets that are made for stop motion for the film. Really, really wonderful exhibit. Of course, on hand is plenty of merchandise previews as well. Comic-Con is all about the merchandise often, and Frankenweenie's gonna have no shortage of that, with lots of plushes with the dog and other characters, and plenty of action figures, as Tim Burton's movies generally have. And when you're walking around Comic-Con, you never know who you're going to run into. As I said, I had an appointment to talk to Don Hahn here during this preview night, but while I was in there waiting to talk to Don, who should walk by right behind me but legendary and famed Disney Imagineer Tony Baxter, who apparently is a regular at Comic-Con. He loves to go and just explore, and I chatted with him just for a minute off the record, not an official interview or anything, but he said he was having a good time so far, just wanted to stop by, see everything, as a fan. So definitely some fun to be had there at the San Diego Comic-Con. While walking around the show floor, I attempted to get that night and preview night into one of Disney's other exhibits, actually ABC's exhibit this year, for The Neighbors, their upcoming TV show. Last year they had the fairly elaborate Pan Am booth where you sat in this sort of mock airplane and experienced an early look at Pan Am as if you were flying away. This year was a little house for The Neighbors, and these, I guess the premise of it is that aliens have landed and sort of an invasion of the body snatchers kind of thing, and out front were a row of attractive girls all holding wonderfully smelling apple pies, and very serious looking, admitting that they were there as aliens to essentially overrun the planet. Unfortunately, I never actually got in there. I tried to get on there preview night, and they actually requested that I would come back another day because they hadn't quite tweaked their script yet, and then I just kind of never had a chance. Even though there were 4 more days of Comic-Con, I got so busy with everything else, I just never got in there. But from what I heard, it wasn't as interesting as the Pan Am booth last year. Of course, you know what happened to Pan Am. It got canceled in the end, and so we'll see what happens to The Neighbors. It sounds like an interesting show on ABC, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. So now we're actually going to move on into the next day at San Diego Comic-Con, where, starting fresh once again for the first full day. This is officially day 1, and it was going to be the biggest of the Disney days. First on the agenda was to head on over to Hall H, which is the massive, biggest presentation hall of San Diego Comic-Con. It's the legendary hall where so many amazing things have happened, from, special appearances by celebrities, surprise appearances and announcements, and first looks and exclusive clips at movies and television shows, etc., etc. So it's a big deal to get into Hall H and attend these performances. So and like last year, very first presentation of Hall H was Twilight this year. The very last Twilight presentation at Comic-Con. So, of course, people were lined up literally days in advance to get in. Fortunately, Hall H holds about 6,000 people, maybe even more than that, maybe 6,500 people or so. So you don't really have to camp out unless you want a front spot. I was perfectly happy with showing up a couple hours before it. Of course, my wife Michelle was with me, and she actually wanted to see the Twilight panel, so we showed up early, a few hours, but, well, the panel, I think, was at 12:30 or so, and we got there at maybe 9 in the morning, so we sat outside around the tents waiting for that to start, and eventually we got inside, and yes, we did get into the Twilight panel about 2/3 of the way back, so had a pretty decent seat. We were able to see all the celebrities. Of course, they have big screens where you can see them much closer, and Hall H is not cleared between presentations. So we were able to, once the Twilight group got up and left, we were able to get up much, much closer in order to get a better view for the upcoming Walt Disney Studios presentation, which was the second big Hall H presentation of San Diego Comic-Con 2012. And this one began, again, with the topic of Frankenweenie. Of course, just talked about it with Don Hahn, except this time, for the big Hall H presentation, Tim Burton himself was in attendance. The Walt Disney Studios presentation was being hosted by Chris Hardwick of Nerdist and AMC's The Talking Dead. And I should note here that there's something very important about all Hall H presentations, and that is the presentations themselves. Photography is no problem. Video is no problem. Any kind of recording. However, anytime there is anything shown on a screen in Hall H, you're not allowed to record that whatsoever, because that's where they show off the exclusive clips just for Comic-Con. So while I have posted many of the full panels, the presentations over on our YouTube channel, and you can enjoy them there. I'm not going to share them here on the podcast because you can just go to our YouTube channel to check them out. While I have them there, you're not going to see all of the clips, unfortunately. I would love to bring them to you. I wish I could bring them to you, but unfortunately that was simply not possible because it's against the rules. So anyway, moving on, the Frankenweenie presentation itself actually opened with a sort of a 50s sci-fi style B-movie type trailer, which really, really entertaining. Unfortunately, Disney did release that one after Comic-Con, so you will find that over on YouTube, and it's very entertaining. If you're looking forward to seeing what Frankenweenie is all about, you can head on over there to see that. They also showed a few more clips from the film, which they have not released, and overall, it really looks, what you might expect from Tim Burton. It's funny, and it's creepy. It's really what Burton is great for, and it's almost like older Burton as well. It's not Willy Wonka Burton or Alice in Wonderland Burton, more like Edward Scissorhands Tim Burton, which is great. It has that quirkiness to it, and what really struck me the most about seeing these clips from Frankenweenie is that every single character has its own personality. There are no throwaway characters. It's the whole thing's a spin on a Frankenstein story, as Don Hahn was just saying, but it's set in a kid's world, and each kid, whether it's in the classroom, around the neighborhood, or friends of the main characters, has his or her own unique role in the film, all seemingly very memorable. I mean, even from seeing just short clips from the film, it all seemed it seemed great. I'm really, really looking forward to it. So it's coming out in October. Definitely excited to see that in the theaters, especially in 3D and in black and white with stop motion. Should be pretty exciting to see all of that. Now, near the end of every panel and presentation, there's always Q&A with the audience, which is always entertaining. There's some odd people at Comic-Con. It's kind of a nerd fest there, and they get up to the microphone and they ask questions, and that geekiness really shows during some of the Q&A. It makes for some really amusing moments a lot of the time. So what I've done here, though, to offer some highlights here on the podcast is to pull some of the less awkward moments and actually share some of the questions and answers of that people actually asked what I may be wondering, instead of the usual sort of "what's your favorite," blah 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 kind of comment. So here are a couple of good questions that were asked of Tim Burton about Frankenweenie, and actually about a little bit more of his work and his career. And I think this first question definitely says a lot about recent Tim Burton movies, and I have a feeling a lot of people were wondering this one.
Hi, hello, Tim. I'm a huge fan of you. My name is Leo. I'm from Brazil. And I love all of your movies. Scissorhand, Alice. I only have one question. Aren't you tired to work with Johnny Depp? Wow. But there are other actors. No.
First of all, I loved Scissorhand Alice. That was a great movie that I loved. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, I've moved on to dogs and little puppet characters moving up in the world.
Okay.
Is this the best Brazil has to offer?
No, we also have monkeys.
Oh, monkeys. All right, I'm sold. Can I have like a smoking monkey butler or something? That'd be really awesome. Damn you and your sucker, Brazil. That was really rewarding, Tim. I think we all felt that. That was very special.
Okay, so some amusing moments there in Hall H. But yeah, everybody's wondering, why does Tim Burton work with Johnny Depp so much? It's kind of a non-answer there. But anyway, here's another interesting question for Mr. Burton.
Hi, I am Steven. I just want to say you're an inspiration to me, and it's an honor to meet you. I'm trying not to geek out right now.
That's okay.
So
You're safe zone. You got as much as you want.
All right. That's why we're all here. It's all right.
All right. Safe place. Okay, so my question is, are you ever going to go back to darker tone films like Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd? Because I love that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have my moments of light and dark, See, my problem is I never think things are that dark. I find sometimes things that are light or seem darker to me, so I'm like the worst person to ask. Sorry.
Sorry. All right, thanks. One more question. We have time for one more question.
Hi, Tim. I just wanted to say you're my biggest inspiration of all time, and I just wanted to know, how does it feel to finally finish a project you had started like so many years ago?
Yeah. No, no. I mean, I feel like you do. When I think about it, I start to cry myself. In fact, I think every movie I burst out into tears for lots of different reasons. But it does mean a lot to me, and they're all kind of special, but this one definitely is special for me. And thank you very much for your question.
Thank you. I hope I could work someday with you.
Well, you sound like you've got a lot of nice emotion. Thank you so much.
So, obviously, some very strong feelings throughout San Diego Comic-Con. Everybody's a big fan of someone, and it's a wonderful opportunity for those who are in attendance to get up the guts to get in front of the microphone, in front of 6,000 people in this Hall H, up on the big screen, and ask somebody like Tim Burton a question. Definitely can become emotional for some. So it's nicely handled there. So this was just one part of the Walt Disney Studios presentation, Disney's biggest presentation at San Diego Comic-Con. Next up in the same one, still hosted by Chris Hardwick, was presentation for Oz the Great and Powerful, where he welcomed out director Sam Raimi, of course, best known for the Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness, the Spider-Man trilogy, not the most recent Spider-Man movie, but the three before that, and definitely a great first look at what Oz the Great and Powerful is going to be for Disney when it comes out in a few months. There was, of course, a first look behind the scenes of this film at the D23 Expo last year, and that was a real sort of obscure look at the film. It was, not really showing anything of the film itself, and at Comic-Con they debuted really the first real look at actual footage of what the movie is going to be like. And fortunately, Disney also released that clip as well to us. So over on our YouTube channel, you can watch this sort of trailer for the film, which is great. It starts square, like old-time video, grainy, black and white, very reminiscent of the original Wizard of Oz, and then it expands out to widescreen and and turns to color. Of course, just like The Wizard of Oz, has that same sort of feeling to it, but very much updated. Overall, Oz the Great and Powerful looks very promising. I think it looks great in this trailer. I must say it's kind of the same visual style as Alice in Wonderland. The film is from the producer of Alice in Wonderland, Tim Burton's. So if you didn't like the look of that film, you may not like the look of Oz the Great and Powerful either. It's kind of this very surrealistic look to it. But I'm looking forward to it after seeing the clip. Go check it out yourself on our YouTube channel. In addition to director Sam Raimi, they also brought out actress Michelle Williams and Mila Kunis, two of the stars of the film. And again, you can watch the full panel over on our YouTube channel, but I did want to share a couple of the Q&A portion, a couple of questions that were asked there. Some of the sort of enlighten you a little bit, as it did for me, about really where this Oz the Great and Powerful film comes from. Is it a prequel? Is it a sequel? How does it tie into the original Wizard of Oz? And where is Sam Raimi and his whole group going with it? So let's head back over to Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con for question number 1.
I've been following the teaser images that have been coming out the last few weeks, and I noticed the balloon looks eerily like the one from the 39 film. And so I was wondering, is this more of a prequel to that, or is this a pseudo-sequel to the books?
I'll answer that question. It's really Mitchell Kapner, the original writer of the screenplay, took the Baum books and gathered different information that Baum had written about the character of the wizard in the second Oz book, in the third Oz book, in the fourth Oz book. Then he put those events in chronological order, and then he really just made up the rest from his imagination. So it's really based on the book, and it nods lovingly toward the 1939 great classic Wizard of Oz.
So that kind of sets the stage of what Oz the Great and Powerful will be, and here's even a little bit more.
I loved from the preview, the black and white to color of it. The balloon was mentioned. You mentioned some restrictions, Sam. What other pieces from the 100-year history really sparked your visual look for the new film?
Well, we've got a great production team, and headed up by the great production designer Robert Stromberg, who's did beautiful work on Avatar and Mr. Burton's Alice in Wonderland and and so really we wanted to create an absolutely unique look. But there's so much great description described by Baum in his books. That's really where it started. An original look that was inspired by Baum, but seen through the eyes of this brilliant production designer. I also have a great producer, Joe Roth, who is the producer of Alice, and he brings a lot of experience and world-building ability. And really that's what we had to do. We had to build a completely original world, something the audience has never seen before. And the 3D really helped us with that. It helped give us, it was a great tool to create this additional dimension in a place we've never seen. So I think it nods its head to images that we're familiar with, but it tries to present an original experience for the audience.
And there is a bit more about Oz the Great and Powerful coming soon from Disney, still in production, definitely further out than Frankenweenie is. But if you want to check out a bit more, head on over to our YouTube channel to see even more. It is a prequel, sort of original story. Should be fun, and it's worth also noting that part of the fun of attending San Diego Comic-Con is you never know when you're going to get some freebies out of things. And at this Walt Disney Studios presentation, everybody who was in Hall H got handed a little ticket to redeem later for a poster exclusively released for San Diego Comic-Con. It wasn't a full-size poster. It was a smaller version. Those of you watching the video version of the show can see it hanging right behind me. It's a really nice-looking poster, so I'm always happy to grab something free like that. Then the next movie and the last announced movie that would be part of this Walt Disney Studios presentation at this year's Comic-Con was Wreck-It Ralph, a movie that everybody who went to the D23 Expo last year really looking forward to. Of course, the trailer was released recently online. Really has taken the video game world by storm because it's sort of diving into this old world of retro video game-ness and the world of old school arcade games, stand-up arcade games, and having this original character, Wreck-It Ralph, and his whole world of video games, and now he's going to be jumping between games and and it's going to be sort of the Roger Rabbit of video games because it'll be pulling in all these licensed characters from existing real games over the years. And so now even more was shown at the Comic-Con this year, which was really exciting. They brought out director Rich Moore to introduce 10 minutes of Wreck-It Ralph. Unfortunately, this is not something that I can share because Disney did not release it. It was only for Comic-Con, but I can say the crowd loved it. It was really geeky, as you can imagine, really entertaining. Very similar footage to what was shown at the D23 Expo, but even more fleshed out. Obviously, they've been working on it almost a year since then, since last year. Even more familiar game characters were seen in there. Bowser from the Mario series, Pac-Man Ghost, Kano from Mortal Kombat, Zangief from Street Fighter were some of the ones we'd seen before, and also Sonic the Hedgehog was in there. That was the first time we had seen him. Q*bert was in there, and I'm sure there were many others that I'm not even listing here. The first 10 minutes of the movie or so that they showed really sets the stage, obviously, for who the characters are, why the lead character of Wreck-It Ralph is wanting to be something other than the bad guy of his old arcade game called Fix-It Felix Jr. And the whole crowd just really loved the clips that they showed there, laughed out loud, and then they showed a couple of other clips that were sort of outside of that realm of referencing the old video games, and those weren't quite as good. It makes me wonder if the movie's going to kind of go up and down throughout the whole thing, because the ones where it was sort of these original game universes that were being presented, one is Hero's Duty, which is like a first-person shooter, another is like a candy racing game. That's where you get into some of the other characters and actors who were in the film. Of course, John C. Reilly, who came out during the presentation, voices Wreck-It Ralph, and Sarah Silverman voices a character, something von Schweetz, Penelope von Schweetz, I think, and kind of a child character. And as it turns out, Silverman's character kind of does a lot of, potty humor. It's not really what I was expecting out of the film, but the clip that they showed had a lot of puns on the word duty from Hero's Duty, and you can imagine where that went. That got old fast. So I hope the whole movie isn't like that. I hope it's more of the sort of clever wittiness of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and not so much that kind of humor. But anyway. Of course, naturally, just like the other parts of this presentation, there was Q&A, which offered some interesting insight into the inclusion of the video game characters from abroad, outside of the the worlds of Disney, and how they were brought into this. So let's hop back over to Hall H for a little bit about that for Wreck-It Ralph.
My question is actually for Mr. Moore. How hard was it to get the licensing for the different video game characters?
Pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it was, well, at first it seemed like it was going to be very difficult, but we figured, if we're making a game or a movie about video games, we should have the actual game characters from actual games in the movie. So we just went for it, and we met with a lot of the people from the different video game companies and started up relationships with them, and little by little, they said yes, they'd love to be in the movie. So
just imagine you're the Frogger guy.
Yeah.
Okay, you're sitting at home. You got Frogger. It's a game about a frog goes across a road. It's not that popular anymore. A phone call comes in from Rich Moore. We're making a multi-million-dollar Disney movie. Can Frogger be in it? I think it's a pretty quick answer. No offense to Frogger. I love Frogger.
And another question related to that topic.
My question is, was there any video game characters you wanted to get but you couldn't get the rights to?
Oh, that's a good question. You want to know?
Why would we give them?
Why would I talk about that certain mustachioed little plumber guy? Too highfalutin for...
He couldn't get him before the game.
And his brother who wanted more money. And,
oh, whatever. He's the worst plumber in the history of plumbers.
And he already had his own movie, didn't he?
Yeah. So...
Academy Award-winning...
I'm not going to talk about it.
All right. Well, bye.
Oh, was it Super Mario?
Sarah!
So there you go, Rich Moore, Sarah Silverman, John C. Reilly, joking all about Wreck-It Ralph and what characters they did and did not include. A very funny Q&A and presentation. So definitely head on over to the YouTube channel on our website as well, InsideTheMagic.net, of course, to check all of that out. But that actually was not the end of the Walt Disney Studios presentation. It was the end of the planned portion of it all. But then after that group got off the stage, Chris Hardwick stuck around and had a little bit of a surprise.
We're almost at the end of the panel. But again, it wouldn't be Hall H if we didn't have surprises, and Disney's got a huge surprise for you guys. So sit tight and let's roll the footage. I do not believe you will need 3D glasses for this. Roll it, Ace!
And unfortunately, I can't share exactly that footage. It was a Comic-Con exclusive. It was about 2, maybe 3 minutes long, but I can tell you what it was, and I can describe it to you. It was the very first look at the Lone Ranger, Jerry Bruckheimer film starring Armie Hammer as the title character, of course Johnny Depp as Tonto, and all that's been released from this film so far has been a single image, which let the world know exactly what Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer would look like for this film. And other than that image, nobody had any idea what this was going to be like. And as I said, I can't, no recording of the screen, unfortunately, was allowed. Disney hasn't released this clip. Only those in Hall H were able to see it. And fortunately, I was there, so I can tell you it was not quite a trailer. It was kind of a well-edited series of clips with very little dialogue, but The Lone Ranger seems like it's going to be a very stylized Western. Obviously a Western, but very, very stylized. Lots of action, trains, explosives, very high contrast look, very true to that one image that Disney has released. The whole movie is essentially going to look like that, apparently sort of brightly saturated, a little bit overexposed, very strong visual style to it, not like the usual sort of hazy, dusty, dirty Western. This is going to be a Western for today's era and today's genres of or styles of filmmaking. And I can say even more that Johnny Depp in these clips didn't have any speaking lines, but he is very different than sort of the wacky Jack Sparrow or the Willy Wonka characters he's playing. He's very straight-faced as Tonto. Every clip that it showed of him, whether it was him sort of riding underneath a train or just walking around or being on a horse, he was completely deadpan, straight-faced as Tonto, very much like he is in the one promo shot that Disney has released. It seemed very, very good. And of course, this music in the background is not anything to do with the Lone Ranger. It's just Disney, Western music that I put on there. But anyway, this clip, it was intended to make everybody want to see it, and everybody seemed very excited. Not too much to base an opinion off of. In fact, the first 15 or 20 seconds of the clip, you couldn't even tell what film it was. I immediately knew it was going to be Lone Ranger as soon as they said there was going to be a surprise, because that was really the only thing Disney's working on that we haven't seen before, unless it was something out of nowhere. So I thought it would be Lone Ranger, but it took a good 15 or 20 seconds for the majority of the people in Hall H to realize what it was until Johnny Depp was up on the screen. Unfortunately, no surprise Depp appearance in person or anything, but it was definitely fun to see the world's first look at the Lone Ranger, and from there the panel concluded with Chris Hardwick just simply wrapping it up like this.
Exclusive footage, still production Lone Ranger. Thank you so much for coming out to the Disney panel. Please have a huge hand for Oz the Great and Powerful, for Sam Raimi, for Wreck-It Ralph, for Frankenweenie. I'm Chris Hardwick. Thank you so much. See you at the con, guys.
And that was it. That was the end of the Walt Disney Studios presentation at San Diego Comic-Con 2012. Very entertaining presentation. A lot crammed into about a 45-minute span or so. And if you do want to see more of that, the Q&A and the discussions and more from all of the various actors who were there, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net and our YouTube channel to check that out. But related to that, not too far away, about a 10 to 15-minute walk from there, Disney had something special available for attendees of San Diego Comic-Con at the local San Diego shopping plaza known as Horton Plaza. There's an arcade, a video arcade called Tilt. A very old school arcade with a lot of old games, and as such, Disney decided to include what was essentially a quote-unquote old game of their own. They placed 2 working Fix-It Felix Jr. games in there. This is the very first time these have ever been available. They had one at E3, but you couldn't play it. It just had a sign on it that said, hey, anybody out there, if you know of a working Fix-It Felix Jr. game, let us know. We want to have it. Sort of Disney playing into this sort of fake reality setting this game from decades ago. So these back-to-back machines were available for Comic-Con attendees to head over there and play. And of course, I couldn't pass up that opportunity. They're not there anymore. It was only for the duration of Comic-Con, and it was fun. It was a fun little Donkey Kong style of game. And in fact, let me play a little bit of what Fix-It Felix Jr. looks and sounds like. Definitely an old school kind of game here. There's just a little bit of the Wreck-It Ralph game, Fix-It Felix Jr. If you want to not only see more over on our website and YouTube, you can also actually play it online. I think there's an iOS version for iPhone, etc. That's on the Wreck-It Ralph website, and many different ways that you can enter this that universe of Wreck-It Ralph and Fix-It Felix Jr. What was unique to this particular opportunity, though, was that if you reached a certain score, which changed over the days, but if once you reached it, there you got a Wreck-It Ralph T-shirt and a little Xbox Live Avatar download as well, which of course I could not pass up. And again, those of you watching the video version, you'll see the T-shirt hanging behind me. So a lot of fun there. You just move Felix up and down. You fix the windows and the doors that Wreck-It Ralph is bashing, and there's a lot of button mashing and joystick moving. Anyway, the whole thing just looked great. It looked like the old arcade cabinets of years ago, fit right into the arcade. So a lot of a little extra fun there for attendees of San Diego Comic-Con. And from there, winding down the first day, there wasn't too much more Disney-specific entertainment to be had, though there was, this and that around the show floor. I kind of walked around for a few hours and checked out the merchandise that was available throughout there. Bought things here and there, et cetera, et cetera. And then that night, I had a very, very special experience lined up that a lot of you have already seen my video from this. In fact, tens of thousands of you, of people around the world, have seen video of me taking part in the Walking Dead Escape, a special 3-day event that was set up at Petco Park just across the street from the San Diego Convention Center, inspired by The Walking Dead. It was like a 45-minute obstacle course, absolutely grueling obstacle course, climbing and jumping and running and sliding and being chased by zombies, and it was just nuts, absolutely nuts. The hardest thing I've ever done. I thought I was going to die. It was so exhausting, but it was fun, and I captured the whole thing on video for your enjoyment. So if you want to see me making a complete fool of myself with really bad acting, playing into this whole notion of zombie infection apocalypse happening in San Diego, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net or on our YouTube channel. I know I keep mentioning that, but you definitely want to watch this. It was insane. It was the most. I'm still sore. It's been almost a week since I've done this, and I'm still sore from this experience. The most, anyway, just go check it out. You'll see why. And from there was one final stop for the evening. San Diego, or rather, Comic-Con had put on something special this year, sponsored by VH1 Classic, Dawn of the Con party that night. Within Petco Park, the Walking Dead Escape was sort of in the up and down the stairs and through the sides around Petco Park, but actually within Petco Park, kind of the park area of the park next door, they had this Rob Zombie inspired, and Rob Zombie was there at some point. I didn't actually see him, but sort of this party with a DJ and posters being given out and all kinds of music playing, et cetera, et cetera. So I went to that for just a little while, but I was completely and utterly exhausted after the zombie thing. So, it was a lot of fun, but after walking around Comic-Con all day, I really seriously nearly just collapsed, and I think anyway, that's that. So moving on now to day number 2 with very, very little sleep. Of course, I went home and edited video and posted photos and all that kind of stuff that I do all the time. I got maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep and turned around and went right back to San Diego Comic-Con the next morning for even more fun and adventure, and definitely some more Disney excitement on day number 2. I was really looking forward to this day, actually. Started with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles panel from Nickelodeon. There's a new Ninja Turtles show coming out very soon. Not Disney related whatsoever, but I talked about Ninja Turtles over at Nick Hotel here in Orlando, so I can kind of link it all up that way. Anyway, the presentation was fun. I didn't record this one. I just kind of sat back and enjoyed it, but I did take some pictures, and it was nice to see the voices of the new Turtles, which include Sean Astin, who, of course, very famous from the Goonies and Lord of the Rings and Rudy and all that kind of stuff. He is the voice of Leonardo. We've got Jason Biggs from the American Pie series. He's the voice of, Sean Astin is Raphael. Jason Biggs is Leonardo. You have the former voice of Raphael is now the voice of Donatello, and then some guy I don't even know who he is voicing Michelangelo, and they also had the voice of April and Splinter and Shredder there, which was all very, very cool. I definitely enjoyed that. Good panel for Ninja Turtles fans. I also picked up some Ninja Turtles swag, a hat, a foot soldier hat, and a Turtles hat, and a bunch of other stuff. They actually had an ongoing thing where if you wore these hats around, you would be turtle bombed by some of their staff, and they'd give you the bag full of all kinds of Turtle swag, including I got a retro action figure signed by Kevin Eastman, one of the creators of Ninja Turtles. So very, very cool there. But anyway, getting back to the world of Disney, one of my favorite topics, of course. Yes, Tron. And I'm actually not going to talk a lot about this right now because I have so much to share related to Tron Uprising, the Disney XD show, that I'm going to have to save it for another show completely, or we'd be here for many, many hours. The panel for Tron Uprising was a great star-studded panel, not only the creators and the writers of the show, but also some of its leads, including the lead, the guy who voices Beck, Elijah Wood. So that was my second Hobbit of the day that I had seen. Sean Astin first, now Elijah Wood. And Bruce Boxleitner, of course, was there. He has played Tron since the existence of Tron, and it was a very entertaining panel. That is up on YouTube as well. And I also afterwards had a chance to interview all of these people, except for Elijah Wood, unfortunately. But I talked to everybody else who was there, creators, voices, etc. So stay tuned for all of that. If you're a Tron fan, you'll be able to look for that sometime in the coming weeks here on the show. But I will say right now, the subject of Tron 3 was, of course, brought up at some point in the writers said yes, they are still working on a script for Tron 3, but no guarantees. And they said Disney is definitely sort of on board with them developing it. But who knows from there. So anyway, from there, after Tron, the Disney fun kind of continued, and this was throughout all of San Diego Comic-Con. I was keeping my eyes open for any of the cosplayers, the attendees who walking around in costume, particularly looking for anybody wearing Disney costumes, and I spotted plenty of them. There was, certainly Ariel, the Little Mermaid, with lots of flounders on there. There was lots of Tim Burton characters. Sally, Nightmare Before Christmas, as a Disney link there. There was a guy dressed up in full Tron motorcycle suit with the helmet and everything. I saw the Sleeping Beauty fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. Various stages. A full-size flounder next to an Ariel in her human form, which was interesting. I saw Princess Tiana, which I don't think I've ever seen at one of these conventions before. That was a good character to see. And then a lot of people take, of course, spins on the Disney characters. So I actually saw a steampunk version of Buzz Lightyear, which was a really cool costume. It looked, this guy must have put a lot of work into this one. It looked really, really fantastic. And when I was outside the convention at one point, actually waiting for something across the street, I spotted a scene straight out of the movie Enchanted in the distance, amidst all of the regular convention goers. None of them in costume. Walking up was Giselle in her full big poofy white dress, and it's just absolutely hilarious to see. Of course, I snapped a photo of it, and if you're not watching the video version, you've got to go check out this photo. It looks like a snapshot straight out of the movie. It was hilarious to see that just kind of coming toward me. Another really excellent costume was there was a girl complete with Scottish accent and everything, dressed as Merida, and she actually almost looked better than the Meridas who are in Disney's parks, and that's kind of true with a lot of the cosplayers at Comic-Con. They do it better than the official costumes a lot of the times that are created officially, for movies and TV, etc. So definitely a good one there. Of course, Disney owns Marvel, so there were plenty of Avengers costumes, male and female variations on those. Some looked great, some looked not so great. And then there were other variations on Disney characters, a lot of hipster Disney characters as well. That's an internet meme that goes around. Of course, I saw a hipster Snow White and Ariel and Sleeping Beauty and all of that. And I even also saw a zombie Snow White, which was particularly creepy, but also fun to see variations on the topic of Disney fun. Speaking of zombies, by the way, after walking around the Comic-Con floor for quite a while, then headed out to the streets of San Diego where it was the annual Zombie Walk, which is always entirely entertaining. And it was once again this year. And after that, I had another party to go to. I'd arranged to get into FearNet's party, which they were calling Con of the Dead, not to be confused with the previous night's Dawn of the Con. This is Con of the Dead, a very Halloween a themed party inside one of the local nightclubs at San Diego. Very fun party. They did a really excellent job sort of combining the Halloween theme with Comic-Con and just everything else that was going on. So definitely hung around there for quite a while to cap off day number 2 and sort of wind down before once again going back to the hotel and editing video, posting photos, getting a little work done, and sleeping for another 3 or 4 hours before getting up and going back the next day. And when I did return to Comic-Con for day number 3, it was indeed my turn to join in the cosplay fun. I decided to show up on day number 3 as none other than Mr. Marty McFly from the Back to the Future series. Pretty easy costume to assemble. I put it together within just a couple of days of the Comic-Con. I actually didn't really plan on having a costume at all, and then I was like, well, you know what? Let me go as Marty. So I put that together. Definitely took some pictures with people around the convention. And had some fun being Marty for the day. So good times there. But back to the topic of Disney. There was certainly some Disney fun to be had on this day number 3 of Comic-Con, which was Saturday. And here's something that I didn't actually go to myself, but there was some Phineas and Ferb excitement going on. Some of the voices from the film, as well as the creators of Phineas and Ferb, were there in attendance, and they had an announcement to make in addition to just talking about Phineas and Ferb. They announced a Marvel mashup with Phineas and Ferb. It's going to be called Phineas and Ferb Mission Marvel, an animated adventure, as they're putting it, that will assemble characters from 2 hugely popular franchises. Obviously, you know which 2. It's going to be a television event premiering in summer 2013 on Disney Channel, and the very first crossover animated television special for Marvel and Disney properties. So it's all linked together. And should be interesting to see how Marvel's superheroes and supervillains combine with the world of Phineas and Ferb. From there, I kind of escaped from the world of Disney for a little while because there were some other things I wanted to see. I went to the panel for Futurama and The Simpsons, which was kind of a joint back-to-back panel, as you might imagine. Matt Groening, etc. Very entertaining there as well. And after that, I escaped a little bit to go back into the world once again of Frankenweenie, as if I hadn't had enough of that on the first day. There was another sort of exhibit, if you will, out in front of the San Diego Comic-Con. This was actually open to anybody, not just Comic-Con goers. Anybody in San Diego, would be able to go to what was called the HGTV Electrifying Garden. And it was completely inspired by the world of Frankenweenie, with the setting of a cemetery and the sort of the city of New Holland, I guess the movie is set in. It had a big windmill, and you walked inside, and once you went inside this area, which was nicely air-conditioned, good to get out of the sun that you had to wait in line for, you stepped into the cemetery from Frankenweenie. And it was linked to HDTV because when you first stepped in, there were a lot of plants that were labeled and kind of showing how you could put a garden together, of course. But then from there, it was a promo for Frankenweenie from Disney. A very entertaining walkthrough. I'll be posting more some video throughout that pretty soon. I haven't had a chance to edit that yet, but definitely look for that over on InsideTheMagic.net and on our YouTube channel pretty soon. So moving on from there, I went to another non-Disney panel. It had really nothing to do with Disney whatsoever. The True Blood panel, for any of you HBO True Blood fans out there. Very, very entertaining, very not family-friendly. But it was good to kind of, as I said, escape from a little bit, escape from all that Disney for a little while at least. But at the same time as that, there was actually a lot of Marvel stuff going on that I was apparently missing. I didn't really know that all of it was going on. I knew of it, some of it, and I kind of decided just to skip some of it because I'm not really the biggest Marvel fan in the world, but there's definitely some good Marvel stuff going on, including a special appearance from Robert Downey Jr. during a kids' costume contest out in the Marvel booth in the middle of the floor. The Marvel booth featured all of the Iron Man suits from the Iron Man films, including the new one from Iron Man 3, and they invited kids who were dressed as Iron Man to come up, and a surprise appearance of Robert Downey Jr. there, which was really cool. In addition, on that same day, Robert Downey Jr. showed up to Hall H wearing a glowing Iron Man glove on his right hand, and it was a big Marvel presentation in Hall H. Again, I wasn't there in person, but there were a lot of sort of announcements made for what the near future of Marvel movies are going to be. We knew about some of them. Of course, we knew Iron Man 3 was on the way, and it is simply called Iron Man 3. They revealed what the logo will look like for that. Of course, it's red and gold and exactly what you might think it is. But then some more announcements were made. The title of the next Thor film, which is coming out November 8th of 2013, is going to be Thor: The Dark World. And then an announcement that, wasn't necessarily a surprise. Everybody was kind of seeing this coming, but it is official now. Marvel Studios and, of course, Disney working on an Ant-Man film. And as somebody who is not a big comic fan, I have no idea who Ant-Man is, and it sounds awful to me. But I'm sure those who know a lot more about the Marvel universe would beg to differ and say how cool Ant-Man is. I haven't the slightest. Sounds like a villain on The Tick or something. But anyway, another announcement they made was the title of the next Captain America movie, which is coming out April 4th of 2014. It's going to be called Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And then finally, again, another recently rumored property now confirmed as of San Diego Comic-Con, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy. That'll be coming out August 1st of 2014. This one's even more baffling to me than Ant-Man. They showed off a little bit of concept art for Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is just way out there. This is like crazy creatures from outer space. I don't know the history of it, but I'm sure comic book fans do. Should be interesting to see where Marvel and Disney head with that one. That one's definitely a lot more extreme in trying to draw an audience than something as sort of relatable and recognizable as Captain America and Iron Man and Thor and characters that everybody knows. This is quite a bit more out there, so we'll see where that goes. In addition, Marvel was putting on a special scavenger hunt throughout the streets of San Diego to find a special screening at the end of the day for the next Marvel one-shot, the shorts that they've been working on. It's in conjunction and promotion for the upcoming massive Avengers Blu-ray release, which is going to come in this cool case with the glowing thingamabob in the middle and all of that. Anyway, those who solved the scavenger hunt found their way to a special an early screening of this Item 47 short film from Marvel that will be included in the Avengers Blu-ray, and at the screening were the stars of the short and the creators of it, etc., etc. I did not go to any of that, but anyway, it was all happened at Comic-Con. Some interesting announcements for you Marvel fans out there. And for those of you who are fans of Halloween Horror Nights, like I am, surprisingly, a Halloween Horror Nights for both Universal Orlando and Universal Studios Hollywood came out of San Diego Comic-Con. I would not have predicted that, but the world of Silent Hill is coming to Halloween Horror Nights, both in Orlando and in Hollywood. I'm very, very excited. I'm a big fan of this video game series. There was a single movie that was made of the series. They're making a second movie. It's coming out in October. And it looks like it's a perfect fit for Halloween Horror Nights. It's going to be a haunted house. It's not the overall theme. It's going to be a haunted house on both coasts. Should be pretty exciting. You can read more about it and even see a sneak peek scene featuring the game's creepy nurses over at InsideTheMagic.net as well. And Universal is promising another announcement. Seems like it's going to be zombie related, perhaps The Walking Dead tomorrow. So definitely, by the time those of you listening and or watching this later, you probably already know what it is, but we'll have all the details forthcoming, hopefully. I definitely would hope that it is The Walking Dead, given all of the rumors that have surrounded all of that. So that moves us on to day number 4 of San Diego Comic-Con, which had a bit more Disney excitement, a bit more Disney fun that you can imagine. Although my costume for day number 4, I did wear another costume, was not Disney at all. I just mentioned The Walking Dead, and it had absolutely nothing to do with that. But it was actually Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't do the makeup and the mask and all of that kind of thing, but I did wear the hat and the sweater and the jeans and the glove and all of that, and that was pretty cool. And I posed with The Walking Dead, and it's the reason I mentioned that photo op that they had at Comic-Con, which was fun. So another fun costume to wear around. Actually, that morning of day number 4, I finally made it over to a special display outside the convention center that featured the Batmobiles from the Batman movies over history, which was very cool to see up close. That was a neat bonus that was part of Comic-Con this year. I, of course, walked around and explored more of the show floor on this last day, trying to spot any more last Disney items that I could find over the Profiles and History booth. They had an original Nautilus used for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea years ago, amongst many, many other things at the booth. So a lot of old film costumes and props, etc., etc. So a lot of cool stuff to be found there. And then the last bit of Disney for San Diego Comic-Con 2012 was heading into the panel for Epic Mickey 2, as well as Epic Mickey the Power of Illusion for 3DS. And this panel included a creator of the game, Warren Spector, head of the Walt Disney Archives, Becky Klein, along with a couple of other people who worked on the game and surrounding properties about the game. And previously, I actually interviewed while I was out there. It was a day or two earlier. I don't know. It all starts to run together at this point, and I probably forgot to mention it as I'm going day by day here. But at some point, it may have even been earlier in that same day, I actually sat down and had lunch with Warren Spector, with Becky Klein, and the others, and talked all about Epic Mickey. So I'm not going to say too much about Epic Mickey 2 right now either, because I will be sharing those interviews soon to learn a bit more about that upcoming game, which the sequel looks even better than the original for many, many reasons. If you want to watch that full panel, again, I've posted it over on our YouTube channel as well, so you can see that for now, and then come back for the interviews later. One note here, Disney was indeed giving away Oswald ears, much as they did at E3, here and there throughout San Diego Comic-Con. I still do not own an Oswald ear hat, despite the fact that they were giving away at Comic-Con. They were even wearing them during the Epic Mickey panel. And I even asked Epic Mickey creator Warren Spector, can I please have a pair of Oswald ears? And he said he couldn't even get one, which, he had to be handed one to him that was embroidered with his name on it for this panel, specifically to show that this was his and his only, because, everybody wants them and nobody can get their hands on them. They only had a limited number to give away, and they were 2 times that they gave them away at Comic-Con. One, I was in line for Hall H, and the other, I was in the interview with Warren Spector, ironically. So still no ears for me, but I'm sure I'll get them eventually. Disney did say they are likely coming to the parks at some point, but for now, no Oswald ear hat for me. So that pretty much wraps up Disney at San Diego Comic-Con. As I said, there, of course, is more to be said, more to be shared. Lots of interviews are related to Tron Uprising and Epic Mickey as well, but that's other topics for other podcasts. Of course, if you want even more detail from my San Diego Comic-Con adventure, you're going to want to keep checking InsideTheMagic.net, where I'm posting much, much more than just the Disney parts of San Diego Comic-Con. You'll find, just exploration of the show floor, day-by-day photo reports, which I'm working on getting up within the next couple of days, and many more videos and more from those parties that I was talking about, and of course the Walking Dead escape that I mentioned earlier. So, a lot from San Diego Comic-Con to be enjoyed. But that about wraps it up for the Comic-Con on this week's show, and maybe I can actually get some sleep now that I'm home. And I think we've got some time for a little bit of listener feedback here at the end of the show, but before I jump into that, let me put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. Actually, while I was at San Diego Comic-Con, I had a chance to stop by one booth from somebody who actually had ordered lanyards for us to give away at Comic-Con. It was a film group called The Asylum, who make really interesting sort of sci-fi movies. I think they actually air on the TV channel Sci-Fi, and of course they're available on DVDs, etc., etc. So it was cool to see our lanyards actually in use there at Comic-Con. Always a treat there. If you want to get some yourself, lanyardlab.com is the place to do it. You can customize it with whatever you want, text, logos, colors, anything, just to click on Get a Quote and submit all your details to us. We'll email you back with a price code along with a proof showing you what your lanyards will look like, and you order it online. It's as easy as that. The website, again, is lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com.
Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
So turning away from Comic-Con here, let's get into some listener feedback. Now, I probably have more emails here, and scrolling through it, I definitely have more emails here than I'm willing to go through at, let's see, it's now 3 in the morning while I'm recording this, so I probably should go to bed soon. So let's do just a few emails here, and then we'll call it a show and carry more of these over until next week. So first up, we actually have an email that's going back to the topic of Cars Land. One more little bit of a mention about Walt Disney and what car he would be, etc. We've been talking about that for a couple of weeks now, and I actually want to put an end to this conversation at this point. Not that I don't appreciate another submission this week, and I'm happy to share it, but I think we've beaten this topic to death at this point. So anyway, one more Walt Disney car possibility. Dan writes in and says, I think Pixar should make Walt Disney an ice cream truck, because what vehicle makes kids more happy than the truck with ice cream and music? Let's call him Malt Drizzly. And I find that here just absolutely hilarious. So, Malt Drizzly. Anyway, so yeah, we'll stop it right there. I think that's a good part to end on. I think we've got it covered. If anybody out there from the Cars universe from Pixar has been listening, maybe they'll include one of our Walt Disney suggestions in a future film. Here's one more Cars-related note. I found this to be particularly amusing. Of course, I've written about the Cozy Cone Motel on the website and the food there and all of that. And as a result, apparently Google has somehow listed me, or maybe some other search engine, who knows, that I had something to do with cones. Real cones, real road cones, because I got an email from somebody named Scott inquiring, as he put it, I send this inquiry to your company in regards to order some road cones. I would like to know the types and sizes of road cones that you have. Immediate response is required and advise on payment method. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that email. I thought it was pretty funny that somebody wrote to me wanting real road cones and not food from the Cozy Cone. I don't sell real road cones, but maybe I should make some custom Inside the Magic road cones or something. I don't know. Anyway, next email. This is fitting for all of the, we're gearing up for Halloween. Of course, yeah, it's July. Yeah, I know. I hear a lot of you groaning. It's too early for Halloween, but the promotions have started to ramp up. I didn't even mention this earlier, by the way, but Busch Gardens has also started teasing out their information for Hallowscream this year. They essentially told everybody what haunted houses they're going to have, but they haven't really given the complete descriptions of them yet, so I haven't written about it. So anyway, that's forthcoming. But William writes in and says, I have a question for you. Okay, a few. Halloween to me is the best time of year to go visit the parks. Yes, William, I agree. Anyway, continuing with that email, I go to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party and Halloween Horror Nights every year. My wife and I have been going to Halloween Horror Nights for 13 years. Mickey's Not So Scary with the kids for 3 years now. And now for my questions. First, it seems you are really starting to like Busch Gardens Halloween event. So is their event catching Halloween Horror Nights or even passing it? Is it worth not going to Horror Nights to go to Busch Gardens? And do you think Horror Nights is still king, even if it has slipped in the last few years? My other question is, with all the talk of zombies being at Horror Nights, I know it's just a rumor, do you think they would do something like The Walking Dead Escape, which was at Comic-Con? William, really good questions there. And of course, I'm very happy to talk about Halloween any chance that I possibly can get. Halloween Horror Nights is a different breed of Halloween event from Howl-O-Scream. They can coexist, and it's fun to go to both. It really depends on what your preference for the events are. If you're looking for the highest quality, the biggest budget, the most elaborate sets, etc., I don't think anybody will ever top Universal Studios. They dump all kinds of money into the event. They have access to that. They have a history, of course, in the Universal world of building up this franchise of horror. That's where it started, all at Universal. As such, that is the brand of Halloween that they produce. Howl-O-Scream, very different. A lot more sort of upbeat, festive, kooky, spooky, ooky, any other ooky, and it is getting better. You're absolutely right. I really enjoyed Howl-O-Scream last year. If I had to pick one over the other, I would still go with Horror Nights. It's my version of Halloween that I enjoy. I love looking at the set pieces. I love getting in the ambiance and the music, and it's not sort of the cheap scare, the startle, that Howl-O-Scream really prides itself on. And there is a place for that, of course. A lot of people really enjoy Howl-O-Scream. I still enjoy it, but it is more about the quick scare there rather than sort of the overall ambiance that Horror Nights often produces. So that's kind of the difference between the two. This year, I don't know. We'll wait and see. It does seem like Zombies is going to happen. The announcement should be made tomorrow. In fact, by the time you're hearing this, it will probably already be made. We'll see what that is all about. As far as The Walking Dead Escape, no, that will never ever happen at a theme park. I didn't mention this earlier, but I mean, almost everybody who went in The Walking Dead Escape got injured in some capacity. You had to sign a waiver, back and front, solid, of little tiny print saying you will not sue them because anything goes, essentially. And theme parks can't do that. They can't expect their guests to get injured, almost guaranteed. I mean, I was running through that thing literally. There was no instruction. They basically said, "Okay, here's your ticket. Go. Zombies, have fun." I had no idea what to expect. The next thing I knew, there were zombies coming at me, and it just crowd mentality broke out, and everybody started to bolt. And there were no instructions, no expectations. Next thing I knew, I was climbing and going under things and running upstairs and out of breath. And it was designed to feel real, as if you were, you were running for your life, and that kind of thing will never happen at a theme park. It was too chaotic. I injured my toe when my shoe fell off. I ripped my shorts open, getting caught on something. It was quite the experience. I loved it. It was great. But no, that will never ever exist in a theme park in that fashion. Way too realistic and brutal, to be honest. It was fun though. Couple of more emails and we'll wrap this up. Next email from Brian asks, what's going on with the renovation they're doing at Buzz Lightyear? I found out today that the medium... we jump topics here. And I found out today that the medium and hard levels on Sorcerers in the Magic Kingdom have been turned off for the foreseeable future. One employee told me it may be turned back on in the fall. Do you have any info on this? Brian, as far as Buzz Lightyear, don't know. Nothing major. I'm sure it's just regular refurbishment, renovations, repainting, that kind of thing. As far as Sorcerers, yes, Disney has been sort of turning on and off the medium and hard levels in order to reduce the lines at each magic portal around the Magic Kingdom, and they were planning on essentially doing that throughout the duration of the crowded season during the summer. So if you're planning on playing the more advanced levels of Sorcerers in the Magic Kingdom, well, you're gonna have to wait. Apparently, I don't know exactly when they're gonna turn it on, but it'll most likely be when summer ends. And you know what? I said a couple of more emails, but we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up there because I've got many more emails to share, and I might as well just save them for next week. So that'll be it for listener feedback this week.
tomorrow.
And there we are, the end of show 380. Thanks, everybody, for being patient this week. Of course, I've had many days of excitement out in San Diego, causing a couple of day delay here. And I also want to say thank you to everybody in the chat room who was there, especially those of you on the East Coast who are there at 12 now in the morning as I'm recording this, and I've been waiting for several hours as I've been planning the show. So thanks very much to all of you who waited it out and tuned in for the live version of the show. Of course, those of you, the rest of you can listen or watch on YouTube, etc., and all the usual fashions. And then we'll be back on regular old Sunday show coming up next week. Hopefully you enjoyed all this San Diego Comic-Con fun with a focus specifically on Disney. There is a bit more of that to share with the interviews that I had. I'll talk to a lot of really great people about some great topics, so I look forward to sharing that in the coming weeks, along with the usual that goes on throughout the summer. Hopefully some more fun popping up around the parks as well. Of course, you can visit InsideTheMagic.net for even more Comic-Con fun. Just look for the Comic-Con banner on the top of the homepage. Click on that, and you'll see a listing of all the San Diego Comic-Con articles. There will be more published in the coming days, so keep checking back. I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. Also visit themeparkconnection.com. It is a great source for Disney collectibles, rare and unique stuff that you really can't get anywhere else. Website for seeing it in person. You can find directions out here in Winter Garden, close to the Magic Kingdom, or you can shop online at their eBay store. And, of course, visit us over at lanyardlab.com. I just said that a few minutes ago, so I don't need to tell you all about that too much more. Website is InsideTheMagic.net. Definitely check out our YouTube channel and Twitter and Facebook and all that to follow along with everything that we do between episodes of this show. So, once again, thanks to all of you for listening and for watching each and every week, and have a magical week. Bye.
Tomorrow, just